Welcome to Great Day Houston, everybody. You know that saying, the sky is the limit? For our first guest, that's where things really took off. As a military pilot, he served in several deployments, became a member of the Blue Angels twice, then flew in the front seat during one of Hollywood's biggest movies, Top Gun Maverick. Today, retired U.S. Navy Commander Frank "Walleye" Weisser is sharing the lessons that shaped his career in his new book, Lead Solo. Good morning, Commander Weisser. As a military brat, let me first say thank you very much for your service.
Well, thank you as well, Deborah. Military kids they don't choose to serve, but they serve nonetheless. So
yeah, five elementary schools, yeah, in different countries. Yeah. All right. Speaking of kids, you as a child grew up in the Atlanta, Georgia area. You describe yourself as an adrenaline junkie.
You know, I didn't know I was. It's only once I get out and stop doing adrenaline kind of activities like flying fighters around that I miss it. And maybe I was able to identify that was one of my perhaps issues or traits.
Yeah, well, it's a good trait to have, especially in your case. When it came time to decide to join the military, what went behind that decision? And did you have the battle of the branches, as in which branch of military you would join?
You know, I felt very called to serve, and I couldn't tell you exactly why I was moved to do that. I didn't feel the need to go into medicine or law or a traditional high school, college route. I just felt like I wanted to serve my country and do something that was mentally and physically challenging. And truthfully, and I mentioned this in the book in an entire chapter, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL in the 90s before they were sort of popularized by the OBL raid and those sorts of things. So I made a very calculated decision to go to the Naval Academy to be a Navy SEAL. And my career in aviation started out as a failure and kind of accelerated downhill from there into failure, which is ironic to some degree looking back at, flying 10 feet over the ground in Top Gun Maverick. But it certainly wasn't an easy road for me.
Yeah. All right. We'll get to Top Gun Maverick in a second. But were you ever influenced by the movie Top Gun? I know you were young when it first came out, but did you ever see that movie?
I did. I saw it in the theater with a close friend. I remember it distinctly, and so I was influenced by it. And yeah, the trick with aviation for me was when you go to the Naval Academy, you're not allowed to choose to be a fighter pilot. You can choose aviation, but we have a wide variety of airplanes we fly. So there is something sort of sexy and romantic about flying around in an F-18, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to do that. So interestingly, almost everyone I flew with, to include most of the greatest fighter pilots I had a chance to serve with in my career, were very much influenced and moreover joined the military because of Top Gun, the originals. So
yeah, in fact, we actually interviewed Vice Admiral John Hill, Vice Admiral of the Navy, a few years ago, and he mentioned the same thing. He goes, how could you not lead? He grew up on an Army base, so I'm like, how did the Navy snake you away? He goes, well, that movie was very influential.
We had heard when we were making the second that there was, and this is anecdotal, but we had heard that the British Air Force and Royal Navy had stopped advertising because they knew the impact on recruiting would be so great from Top Gun Maverick in the U.S. That's the reach these things have.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So backing up to your schooling, you later qualified for Navy flight school. And as you mentioned, you're not quite sure whether you'd be a pilot or not because there are so many choices in there. So, but you earned your aviator wings with distinction. Your nickname, kind of like rappers, y'all have a nickname when you're a pilot, is Walleye. Tell us where that came from.
Sure, it's actually play off of the movie Hot Shots, which mocks Top Gun, the original, with Charlie Sheen. And there was a character who had walleye vision and had to take medicine for it. And he was his vision allowed him, he had to get really close. And so my first squadron, I was flying too close to the other pilots and the other airplanes. And so they jokingly said I had walleye vision.
All right.
Navy call signs are meant to be hurtful. And mine is not terrible, but they're meant to bring you down a step because Navy pilots in general can have a bit of an ego to them.
All right. Well, you got to do a number of things. One is to actually teach. And so you taught pilots to fly advanced Navy jets. You say it was the most fun you've had in your entire life because we were just flying.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And hopefully that means something because I spent, almost 10 years flying with the Blue Angels, which is some of the most dynamic flying in the world, and then also flying for Top Gun Maverick. But for sure, my most enjoyable year of aviation was my year flying around with my friends as a flight instructor all over the world. I loved every second of it.
Yeah. You flew in several deployments. You flew over Iraq and did those things in service. But then you just mentioned the Blue Angels, which I remember as a kid we would get to go see. And it was so exciting. That is something that some people understand, but some people don't know what they are, so explain it to them.
Sure. It's a squadron built around doing air shows. And so we have multiple, probably 10 or more blue jets at any one time, but we fly 6 in our air show. but we're a team of 130 Blue Angels, and we travel around the country with the intent to motivate and inspire and share the professionalism of the Navy and Marine Corps. What I love about the Blue Angels is it's not about the Blue Angels. So we travel all over. We use that air show almost as a mechanism to tell the important story, which is we'll land. I've flown the Houston show a number of times. It's one of my very favorite. And we land there and we immediately set the parking brake, walk straight to the crowd line, engage with young men and women. And a common refrain is, if you like what you just saw, if you thought that was incredible, well, at this exact same moment, my brothers and sisters are doing it off aircraft carriers at night in the Middle East. And that's really cool. And that's the story we want to tell. And so the Blue Angels exist to share naval aviation, because truthfully, if we could take every young man and young woman, put them on an aircraft carrier for a day, they'd all sign up to serve. It's such an incredible workplace. It's our attempt to showcase naval aviation.
And your service went on. You got your master's degree in system analysis. I don't know what that means. I'm sure it's something very important. But you decided to return to active duty, and you led another fighter squadron. You were assigned to the NATO school in Germany.
I was, yeah. I've served with multiple fighter squadrons and worked for NATO for 3 years. All of them were really interesting and unique jobs for a variety of reasons. Working for NATO in Europe and traveling to Africa and Ukraine and all over the partner nations was super interesting for me to engage with other countries. And in the military, they very much want you to get out of your comfort zone. I was happy flying airplanes. I'm in my whoopee when I'm in the cockpit of an airplane. But if you're going to grow and learn and be ready for future opportunities, you have to work with other services, work with other countries. Yeah. And so my time in Europe was absolutely incredible. It opened our eyes up to a wide variety of perspectives and other nations. I loved it.
All right. And sooner or later, it circles around the thoughts of retirement. And so you were, trying to figure out, okay, preparing to retire. You hadn't flown in 3 years, and all of a sudden you got a call.
That's right, and a sad call at that. Jeff Koos crashed in an airplane or in a demonstration practice outside of Nashville, Tennessee on June 2nd of 2016. And with the Blue Angels, unfortunately, there are two things that are true. One is that it's safer to fly 6 airplanes than 5 because the way we move our formation around. And the other thing is, if something happens, a medical, an injury, a death, you name it, you can't just train someone up fast. It takes months and months of training, hundreds of flights. So if someone's sidelined for any reason, someone who has done that job before has to replace them. And there's a really short Rolodex of people who'd done that job. So at that point, I was really the only person that had the timing and the availability as I was getting ready to move from Germany back to the U.S. And so I'm on short notice, moved down to Pensacola and rejoined the Blue Angels and stayed with them for 5 more years.
Wow. All right. And then we have lights, camera, liftoff. Top Gun Maverick began filming, and as many movies will do, they go to the best of the best in terms of getting their stunts done and even getting just kind of the logistics of how it should be done. And you got that call.
I did. The Paramount was intent that they were going to put the actors into the airplane, and that truthfully hasn't been done many times, if it ever. The first Top Gun, I believe Tom flew twice, and maybe only twice, and nobody else flew. Everything was green screen. And in this case, every actor who was playing the part of a pilot or air crew was in Navy airplanes and even had a buildup, flew in small airplanes and medium-sized airplanes to get them ready. Because in the aircraft, they were their director, their own hair and makeup. They handled everything. They drove the pilots around to tell us where to go to get the lighting right. And so we flew with them for hundreds and hundreds of hours. And it was a really unique experience. But if you can imagine flying with some of these people in the back seat, they're not going to find just anybody off the street. So they're trying to mitigate the risk by using the recognized experts. The Top Gun dogfighting instructors flew those scenes. The carrier landing instructors flew the carrier scenes. I flew at low altitude and inverted because that was my experience having been a Blue Angel for so long.
I remember watching this movie and we were all talking to each other. We thought, oh, this is all special effects. This is all special effects. So clearly it was not.
I sat and I was doing an interview with Fox News right after the movie came out, and I just landed on a Gulfstream trip from overseas. I went to get a quick haircut. I sat down. The barber said, "What do you do?" I said, "I fly airplanes." He goes, "Have you seen Top Gun?" And I said, "Yeah, I did see it." He goes, "Can you believe they taught the actors how to fly?" And I said, "Well, I thought Navy and Marine Corps pilots flew in that movie." He goes, "Nope, it was the actors."
Yep, he knew. All right. Okay, we're going to take a pause right there because this is the stuff, of course, that great books are made of. Frank's amazing experiences are the backdrop for his new book, Lead Solo. When we come back, we'll share the marching orders that can improve our own everyday lives.